Today we are joined by Kennon Young, and Kennon is a highly skilled and accomplished jeweler with a passion for gemstones and personal property valuation. His journey in the jewelry industry started in high school, where he discovered his talent for jewelry fabrication and design. And after attending the prestigious Revere Academy of Jewelry Arts in San Francisco, he continued his education at the Gemological Institute of America in San Diego, where he became a graduate gemologist. Kennon's dedication to his craft led him to pursue a several-year study of valuation and personal property, earning him the highest credential in jewelry appraisal in the jewelry appraisal industry, the American Society of Appraisers Master Gemologist Appraiser. So we're really excited to hear all of this great knowledge. I know nothing about jewelry and gems, so great to have you with us, and welcome, Kennon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, we may have an issue.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm not
We
hearing.
just started, Jason.
I know. I know. Listen, you with your with your hellos. Yeah, I'm not getting any sound, but yet we had this problem before. What is that? This is why I should always. Okay, we may have an issue. Oh,
but I can
it's working now.
Hear that.
I know. Okay. Listen, I don't know why it works now, but it does. All right, let's do that again. And well, you know, hi, welcome to the Human Happy Hour.
Welcome, everyone. Are we reading the bio again? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So today we are joined by Kennon Young. Kennon is a highly skilled and accomplished jeweler with a passion for gemstones and personal property valuation. His journey in the jewelry industry started in high school, where he discovered his talent for jewelry fabrication and design. After attending the prestigious Revere Academy of Jewelry Arts in San Francisco, he continued his education at the Gemological Institute of America in San Diego, where he became a graduate gemologist. Kennon's dedication to his craft led him to pursue a several-year study of valuation in personal property, earning him the highest credential in the jewelry appraisal industry, the American Society of Appraisers Master Gemologist Appraiser. So we're really excited to learn about gemstones. I know nothing about this topic, so happy to have you with us, Kennon, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, I think everything's working fine now.
All right, take two for the win on the.
Well, you know what? It's really weird because, okay, not to be all techie, so it's not coming through my phone unless something happens in particular over here. I think everything's working. Okay, so screw it. I'm assuming it's on and working. My phone's being weird.
Let's go with that. Let's assume.
All right, let's go with that. Someone will say something if it's not.
Unless something happens.
Yeah, okay. If I unmute my feed, I get sound.
Okay, cool. Nice. We didn't actually really have to do it. I just wanted to.
We planned this all.
You just wanted me to read the bio twice.
When we interviewed Bosch, he had major sound issues. We had like a 30-minute like troubleshooting session on his end. So now it's our turn.
It happens.
It does. Cool. Well, so you should probably know, Rena, how I know Kennon. As you know, I used to own a jewelry store in Williston, Vermont. And although my wife at the time is a talented designer, neither of us were bench jewelers. So we went through a whole bunch of different jewelers, and I kept hearing, Kennon's name. And I was just like, all right, I'll go there. And then we just I don't know how long we spent talking the first time we met. It's just about everything but jewelry. It was insane. And then, I in a world of people in jewelry that I didn't particularly like, there's a couple. Kennon was a real person, not the smarmy jewelry person that I was so used to talking to in like at New York City or stuff like that. And it was just such, I don't know. And I was able to ask him a lot of questions and stuff. And because, he's way more into it than I ever was. I was just starting out. But yeah, that's how we knew each other. And then he started working, doing some repairs for us and stuff.
We had one good night in New York City after the JA show.
Yep.
When I learned Jason's vocal skills.
And they played that song. I think it was "Don't Stop Believin'," and I don't know if you know how the song sounds like tone wise, but it's doom 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 doom, and it started like this. Doom 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 doom, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like 2 steps higher than normal," but I did it. It was hard, but yeah, that was fun.
Nice. So you know what? Both of you have a wealth of knowledge about jewelry and the industry. So I think, and I don't. So and probably viewers don't. So it might be good for me to take it back a notch, I guess, sometimes for people that don't know anything about it. So can we even speak to like what is a gemologist, and what does that title mean, and can we unpack that a little bit for people that have no touch points with the jewelry
Good idea.
industry?
Absolutely. A gemologist is someone who can grade and identify colored stones and diamonds. It's often confused with an appraiser. An appraiser is someone who has education in valuation and personal property, or has studied the value of something. So a gemologist is not necessarily an appraiser, and an appraiser is not necessarily a gemologist. 2 completely different skill sets. And then, of course, you have a bench jeweler, which is someone who's skilled in fabrication of jewelry or the manufacturing of jewelry.
And so you are both a gemologist and an appraiser.
I am all 3 of those things.
All 3.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think that will be helpful for people that are like, what is this? Yeah. So how did you, it's such a niche field. How did you get interested in gemology, jewelry design, and the industry?
I started with jewelry, and believe it or not, the 2 high schools that I attended both had jewelry courses. One was MMU in Jericho. The other was Brighton High in Salt Lake City. And both of them had jewelry courses. And I think I took my first one my sophomore year in Salt Lake City. And absolutely, they gave me a hammer and a torch and metal, and it was just love at first sight. And then when I came back east, the course was offered, and I took it both semesters my junior year. And then they said, you're not allowed to take it anymore. And I basically said, look, I'm showing up. I'm going. You can kick me out if you want, but I'm going. So that was the start of my great adventure. And I just love doing it more than any other subject. So why not do something that you enjoy with your life?
That's in high school. That's so cool. What a cool course in high school. Like I got
lucky.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have found it otherwise.
I wonder how many high schools, or if that's even probably not today.
Mine didn't.
Yeah, mine did not either. I might have gotten into the field if I had that option in high school too. That sounds really fun.
Well, I think that's one thing that we're really missing in public education is the ability for students to explore different realms of interest.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Uh, so you
Yeah,
want
I can vouch for that with I did wood shop, and I did one little bit of wood shop, and I made a rubber band gun, and then I realized that I was afraid of the saws, so done
I
with that.
had wood shop in middle school. Like they were putting us in like table saws and drill presses in middle school.
Wow.
I think about that, and that just I don't think that would fly today.
No.
actually I had it in middle school too,
Oh
come
my
to think
God.
about it.
Did you?
And we had to make these like little cars, like, these little that propel. And I remember I took mine home, and my father had a Dremel drill, and he let me use the Dremel drill to finish it. So mine looked fancier, I think, than the other kids.
Oh, nice.
Pretty sure I made a birdhouse.
Sorry, I'm still worried in tech world a little bit, so I'm a little distracted. That's why.
Do we want to run a chat? I haven't seen anything like.
Can I share screen and show a couple pieces?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just cut me off when
Yeah, please
you
do.
need it back. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is my wedding band, the
Oh,
Four
wow.
Seasons of Vermont. It's a square shanked gents band in platinum, 24 karat gold inlay with vitreous glass enamel.
Oh my God, you lunatic! That's amazing. That's so good.
It's supposedly impossible to enamel in platinum. That's the status quo in the industry. So this is, as far as I know, is the first ring that this has been done. But I'm sure somebody at some point has done something similar. But
Wow,
you will not find another commercially available one.
that looks great.
Yeah. And as you're showing these, can you explain, like, again, for people that have no idea, like what do these things mean, and what's the
Yeah,
process?
absolutely. So this is diamonds and Sri Lankan sapphire, cornflower blue sapphire, in 95.5 platinum ruthenium, full eternity band. This was done 2 years ago, I think. All of these are done with CAD and then 3D printed. Oh, this one jumped screen here.
Oh yeah, remind me to ask you about CAD and AI.
Yeah, I'd love to get into that.
So CAD, that's the program that you use, correct?
Yeah, that's a computer-aided
program.
design, which allows us to create something in a virtual environment. So it removes the ambiguity. Oh, jeweler's fingers. Removes the ambiguity in the design process. So rather than saying, yes, I can make something that looks like that and hoping that it comes out right, we can actually 3D render pieces. We can then 3D print, set the stones in. It allows us the full creativity with much lower risk.
So how was it traditionally done before? Talk about the evolution.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of methods of manufacture, or rather, maybe a half dozen that are popularly used. If someone were to make something like any of these, traditionally they would carve it out of wax by hand, which means that alterations are a little bit more difficult. You'll have a model, so you can see what it looks like before cast. You won't have a 3D render, so you can't see it in its potential metals or combinations thereof. But it is an effective method. It doesn't have perfect geometry the way that computer-aided design does.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, little hair right there.
Uh-huh.
Those are the things that'll keep me up at night.
Oh my God, that diamond is so, so clear.
That was a fun one. That was 3 years ago, I believe, something like that. A couple out of San Francisco.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that is. Uh,
That is so clear.
can you talk about that
3.4
one?
carat center, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And that's all in 95.5 platinum ruthenium.
Do you have, I mean, you have a ton of gorgeous pieces. Do you have a favorite piece or a piece with a story
That's a
behind
good
it?
question. The curse of the artist is every time I make something, I can make another one better. So how can I have a favorite if I know that I can make something better than the one that I already made?
It's like having children.
I do like this ring a lot. It was extremely technically challenging, as simple as it is, mostly because one, graduating color, creating an ombre look
Oh,
from
wow.
a deep saturation to a colorless is very difficult. We're sourcing materials that are defined by mother or given to us by Mother Nature. I can't say that I want a stone that's exactly like this. It's really what Mother Nature has produced mixed with my sourcing skills or if I can source it. So one, creating the graduation in color. I think this one I sourced this one first. Then these were like a set of pairs. That was like an oval, that was a round. So I had all of these recut to have a gradual taper going down the sides, and to have that sort of color graduation ombre look. So very technically challenging, and even the CAD work, creating these settings so that they're all even when they go in, because some are taller, some are less tall. Very technically challenging, and I enjoy the that sort of challenge.
So you had to actually find those stones with the right color gradation.
And how high they are too.
It took a long time just to find them. Being in Burlington, Vermont, we have a little bit more difficulty with these things because we have to be able to translate what we're looking for, rather than, if I was in San Francisco, any major city, but largely Chicago, New York, San Francisco, are the Philadelphia a little bit, but it's dying down, are the larger jewelry trade centers. I could just go to a gem dealer, with the gems I have and match them up with other ones. But being in Vermont and us not having any adequate public transportation, such as trains, the ability to do that is, or rather the difficulty there is much, much greater. So this is what CAD looks like. We create everything virtually. This is a set of family stones. And we create the ring around a finger size. There's our virtual finger. And the stones themselves, as those are givens, and everything else we can manipulate, if you will. Once we have that, we can create a basic sketch and then renderings. And at this stage, if we weren't completely set on diamonds, we could change those to sapphires. We could change the metal to yellow gold, rose gold, whatever material we want.
And Rena, do you know what rendering is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, although when I ask questions, I try to I know, but we don't know who's
rendering
watching.
Is a computer image of it. Because I remember some of the renders look so good. I think someone took a photo of it with a really nice camera. But the cool thing is you can see what the ring is basically going to look like ahead of time, really well.
Yeah, it's amazing how technology has evolved in that.
And with these, we just have absolute perfect symmetry. The geometry is excellent. If you were to try and carve this by hand, one, it would take quite a long time unless you've been carving for, 20 plus years. Two, you're never going to get the perfect angles that this can produce.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, actually, do you have a much older ring that do you ever compare like side by side that
Great question.
The craftsmanship was before?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've got a master portfolio here. You really want to embarrass me tonight, don't you? All right. I'll see what I can. I'm okay with sharing. Let's see how far back we can go.
Yeah.
This was one of my first CAD renderings. And I'm going to go, this is mid-career of where I am now. This was one of my first. This was in platinum, 24 karat gold inlay, 2 ohms, meaning the start and end of everything in the world. And underneath the bezel here was North America inlaid in 24 karat gold. So it represented someone's or a couple's journey through life together.
Wow. That looks great.
That one I actually really
story,
like and I'm proud of. Let me go to some stuff that's much older. We've got 2015.
I like the stories behind that. Like, so when you're creating these, are they talk about your customers? Are they mostly couples? Or these engagement rings? Can you?
Yeah, so that really is a large part of what I do is talking with people, and that one I like too, actually. Talking with people and understanding who they are, how the ring's going to be worn, and about them. A lot of these things are very, very personal. I mean, what's more personal than an engagement ring? And what's less personal than getting an engagement ring from a box store? But that's just my opinion. I don't know if I have any of my really, really old stuff, like, 2006, 2007. Farthest back that I'm seeing here is 2015. And I was still doing some stuff that I'm proud of to this day. Love that ring too, actually.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean they're all beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could embarrass myself a little bit more here, but
so that like you use CAD rendering and do all that, like when somebody buys they find it at a box store, or those just like factory assembly line?
Yeah. Oh, let's go full circle to manufacturing. So this is custom CAD creation. A lot of the rings that you'll see in mass production will be originally a CAD rendering, but then they'll be molded with like a metal mold, and then injected with a plastic and then cast from that. So there's a little bit lost in the CNC milling part of stop sharing screen here. A little bit lost in the, I don't know how to get back here.
Oh, it's at the top. To get out of screen, is that what you're saying? Share?
Oh, now it's like super tiny.
Oh yeah. Go to the bottom and you'll see your icon for Zoom, and I think you can maximize from there. Right click. Or Alt Tab.
Cancel leave meeting. Alt Tab, you said?
Yeah, because it'll switch between windows, and then I think you'll be able to find Zoom.
All right. Well, I need to just stop. Hey, Jason, will you take me off stop screen share?
Oh, yeah. Duh. I can do that. Screen share.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I've got it here. There we go.
All All right, cool.
Much better. Much better.
Jason, I see a comment
Yeah, I'm on
regarding
it.
the sound.
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, I'm recording this twice and trying to do it live, and something's preventing live sound. So either way, it'll be on eventually. But right now, the sound's not working very well for some reason. I have no idea why. But
Sure.
I'm recording. We're getting all the sound, just not streaming it.
Okay. Cool. I
So
didn't
we've
know if you had
got
seen that.
we've got wax carving. We've got custom CAD. There's hand fabrication, which is the only type of jewelry that can technically be considered handmade, which I'd love to get into that term. Handmade or hand fabrication is anything that comes from sheet, wire, or grain that has not been put through any sort of machinery, such as casting, die striking, CNC milling. None of that is technically considered handmade jewelry. So that's one of the most commonly abused terms in my industry. And I would say most commonly misunderstood, even inside the industry. One of the last techniques that is more popularly used is die striking, where a metal mold is made. You have a positive and negative, or two platens, and you insert a piece of metal in between, and a hydraulic press comes down and squishes the metal into a specific shape or form. You can create rings that way, believe it or not. And that was very popular in the 20s through maybe the 60s or 70s, somewhere in there. It sort of fizzled out with a longer tail. And that was considered mass production. What's really cool about die striking is it compresses the crystal structure of the piece. So anytime you have an infinite number of hardnesses inside a metal that has to do with the size or the compression of the crystals inside the material. If you squish them, it gets very hard. If you heat them, it gets fluffy and soft. So fluffy and soft is annealed, and squished is work hardened. When something is freshly cast, it's in an annealed state or a softened state. So that's not ideal or perfect, if you will. There are some really technical techniques to kiln harden some alloys. Like there's a designer that passed away maybe 15, 20 years ago out of San Francisco named Stephen Kretschmer. He has a patent on a platinum titanium alloy that can be kiln hardened, which is just really next level technicalities. But die striking, you can when the hydraulic press hits, it work hardens the material, so the end product is a very, very rigid piece. A good conceptualization of it is just grabbing a paper clip, and you can bend it, and as you bend it, it gets harder and harder and harder, and then it eventually breaks. When it breaks, it's past its zone of being able to be work hardened, and it actually becomes very brittle. You definitely don't want to produce jewelry that's brittle, but you want to bring it all the way up to the point of the maximum amount of hardness. I could keep talking about this all night. That's
really cool because it's a lot. You sound a lot like a sword maker. Also, they say the exact same things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to make a bendy one, or do you want to make one that's harder and one will break and one will bend, like a rapier versus a long sword?
Yeah, and the things, probably the most important thing with like working with metals like that is the alloy of the material and how it works and how it hardens. And I mean, we have entire eras of human history that are named after the material that was available at that time. So metallurgy is extremely important.
Here's a random question. Related to this, I was watching YouTube and I got a short, and it showed this guy with some mercury, and he was putting gold flakes in it, like sheets of really thin gold, and it was being sucked into the mercury. Is mercury? I know it's bad for your skin, but is it bad for rings? Like you wouldn't want to get it near gold.
So, from my limited knowledge of mercury, it can go through your pores
Mm-hmm.
and gather in your body. And if you ever do a headstand, it can go into your brain and give you aneurysms.
Okay, no mercury.
So I would highly recommend staying far away from mercury.
Okay.
It is, I mean, when it was first discovered, people were polishing pennies with it.
Oh,
They
God.
are probably not around anymore.
Wow.
It's a very, very dangerous material and an extreme hazard to clean up too. If it breaks, it can, if you break a thermometer, it can shatter into tiny, tiny little spheres that will go into the depths and crevices of like a wood floor. And it's so heavy, there's a good chance you can't even vacuum it up.
Wow.
So it's great question. Don't do it.
And from before, when you were talking about the colors of stones, I remember, I think you told me once about the test to be able to tell how the different colors of diamonds. And I don't want to pretend I remember it exactly because the story I tell is probably insane. But what was the story?
It's evolved over time.
Yes, it has evolved over time. But what is the test that you have to do as a master gemologist?
I think you're referring to distinguishing between colored stones, possibly.
Yeah, like starts clear to yellow, and you have to number them.
You're referring to a refractive index test. Refractive index or an RI of a stone is how light bends through a stone and its relationship to water, I believe, or air, water or air, one of those. I believe it would be air. Water is used for specific gravity or relative density. So each stone, as light enters it, let me see if I can do this for the camera. As light enters it, it will bend at a certain angle. And a refractometer, which looks like
kind of like when you put a straw in water, it goes in and then suddenly takes a turn.
Exactly. Or you have to aim your spear just to the side of the fish in order to get it.
Yes.
Because light bends through the water and the fish is actually in a different location than where it actually is. So this is a GIA refractometer. You put your gemstone on the hemicylinder here and shine light into the back here, and it will bounce through it. And there's inside, there's a tiny little, what do I call it? Measuring instrument that allows us to judge how light bends through the stone. And that's one of the first and foremost things that American gemologists are taught for gemology. In Great Britain, it's a little bit different in the sense where they actually look at the stone physically first and say, what is the polish luster on the surface? Because the higher the luster, the harder the material is. So diamond is one of the only substances that has an adamantine luster because it's a Mohs scale of 10 of hardness. So if the stone has, rounded facet junctions, abrasions, there's a good chance that that's a softer stone. And I wouldn't think immediately that I should be looking for sapphire or diamond, but they certainly use refractometers in that process. So,
yeah, that might be what I was thinking. I don't know why. I'll tell you what I was thinking. This is weird. I pictured the story you told me with you have a bunch of colored diamonds from clear to yellow, and you had to sort them in the right order from clear to yellow. Did I just make that up and start telling people?
I think what you're referring to might be a master diamond set.
Yes.
I mean, so I have one of the Vermont Gem Lab is an AGA, American Gemologist Association accredited gemological laboratory. It's the only one in the state and one of, I think, 70 in the country. What that means is I have the appropriate equipment to be able to grade and identify colored stones accurately. So you can be a gemologist, but if your instrument is a pine cone and a twig, you're not going to be a very good or functional gemologist. You need to have a lot of specialized and calibrated equipment. One of the hardest things to gain is a master diamond set. Traditionally, it takes 65,000 diamonds to produce one set, and they're occasionally available. When I bought mine, it was I had to put the money aside, because if you don't have the money, it's going to come up and you lose it. I had put the money aside. An appraiser in Virginia retired, and I had logged on to I think an email forum at just the right time. I was the first person to respond. He said, "You responded, send me the money," and you got it.
Wow. That's amazing.
There is a company, Gary Wright, out of California, that occasionally they seem to flip-flop on producing them, because it takes an incredible amount of stones to produce one set. But it's for accurately color grading diamonds, and it's the only way to do it. You can't color grade the other traditional methods, or rather less than traditional methods, would be by machine, which there's different types of machines. The accuracy isn't always there, but they're pretty darn good. You can also use, or some people will use cubic zirconia, which are almost always off by a color grade or two per stone. And they'll fade over time. So your yellow stone could become a D when you're gone on summer break, and you come back and try and grade a stone, and you're going to grade it much higher than it should be. So really the only way to accurately do it is to compare a diamond to a diamond. They also have the same refractive indices. They're going to have the same coloration. So
yeah, we used to get diamonds at our store. We would ask for a certain color, and from one company it would come in and it would be a shade.
Yeah.
It would be marked as a shade lighter than the one that we got from that company, and they're supposed to be the same.
And if a client comes into my gem lab and says, I want a 3-carat stone, and it's between an I and a J color, that could be $4,000 or $5,000 difference in value.
Mm-hmm.
And if I miss that, I've done a great disservice to my client. So it's very important to be accurate with these things.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit about what determines the price of the stone? And then for people that have no idea, like, what are the differences between a diamond and a cubic zirconia, and what makes the diamond so valuable? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, cubic zirconia is a synthetic material. It's produced in a laboratory type setting, and is, $1 or $2 per stone. So it's extremely very rare, very available, and very low cost. What gives diamond value? There's a lot of different components to that. I wish it was a simple answer. Originally, diamonds, as I've heard the story, the value was created, the market for engagement rings was created in the 1920s, early 1920s, if my memory serves me well, by De Beers. And those diamonds were coming from the majority in South Africa. And a great story, I'll jump right to that. And this is a story that the GIA, when I was at the GIA, I was told it was in their textbook. So assuming that they're correct on it. But Robert De Beers, in that time in South Africa, owned a certain amount of mines, and he was buying more mines up to try and have a sort of monopoly on the mines. And it eventually came down to him and one other person, and he gathered up a large parcel of sorted diamonds, and they knew, both of these competitors knew, that this last large lot was going to be for sale very soon. So he gathered this large parcel of sorted diamonds and brought it to his competitor and said, "I'll sell you these at a very, very low cost." And he said, "Yeah, absolutely," thinking to himself, "Well, I can turn these around in a week and I'm going to have tons of money to be able to outbid him for this mine." So he took the deal, and Robert De Beers took the sorted diamonds and just poured them out on the table. And the time that it took to sort the diamonds was longer than it took so long to sort the diamonds that his competitor didn't have the cash flow to be able to purchase that last large lot of mines in South Africa. So
Wow.
it was all started with questionable business dealings from the get-go.
Yeah.
We're seeing some really interesting things come out now with lab-grown diamonds versus natural. Lab-grown diamonds are diamonds that literally are diamonds. They're same chemical composition and crystal structure. It is a diamond, but it's produced in a laboratory versus produced in Mother Nature. So the value of diamonds in lab grown is quickly becoming the cost and time it operates the machines to produce that stone, plus faceting and exportation, importation sort of thing. So it's sort of right now I'm seeing 2.5 carat stone, a 2.6 carat stone, EVVS1 is around $70,000. A 2 carat, same stone, that's a natural, same stone lab grown is $2,000. So there's a $68,000 difference between two stones that are completely identical in every single way, except for the crystallography and the crystal arrangement of each stone. Naturals, when they're grown in earth, they're exposed to all sorts of pressures on different sides of them. They're heated up, they're cooled down. So if you look at the crystallography, and we can do that through fluorescence, things like that, it's sort of random. You'll see growth banding where it heated up, cooled down, or pressure was on this side and then this side. When they're grown in a laboratory, they're grown from a chemical vapor or from a 40-ton hydraulic press that's at perfect angles. So the crystal structure is absolutely perfect in a lab grown, if not perfect, just a little off, but near perfect. So in some ways,
when
lab
Superman
growns
crushed the coal in his hand and made a diamond.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah. That would probably look like a natural stone, actually. Come to think of it,
because of the contours of his hand.
I mean, his hand doesn't have perfect geometry, right? So he's squishing it, and it wouldn't have that perfect geometry. I would be willing to bet that the GIA would grade Superman's diamond as a natural stone.
Awesome.
I'm really glad that we sorted that one out tonight. So what gives them value? Lab grown certainly is the cost of operating machinery, the cost of doing business. Naturals, I mean, it is very hard to mine natural stones. What I was told in school in 2004 was that it takes 1 ton of rock hard ore to produce a 3/4 carat diamond. So that's a lot of earth, a lot of really difficult to move earth for a smaller stone. And the majority of the stones that are coming out are industrial grade. They're not gem quality. So there is substantial costs of mining or manufacturing natural diamonds. You know, then there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that I've never in my 20 years heard any straight answers for. Are there large warehouses of diamonds that companies are storing to create or inflate or artificially create the value? I don't know. I haven't seen them, and I haven't run into anyone who has seen them. And if they exist, then I would assume that they're a well-kept secret. But then I'd also ask, are there warehouses full of cars? Are there warehouses full of lumber? Are there warehouses full of any commodity that we have out there? So there could be some of that. I don't honestly don't know. And I think that's the best I could answer that question on what gives the value of a diamond.
Also, how skilled someone is at cutting them.
Absolutely. But keep in mind that skill is, when it comes to natural stones, is entirely targeted at profitability and not beauty. There are some markets where they say beauty first. But if a diamond cutter can produce a 1 carat stone that has a very good cut grade, or some slight blemish or something like that, that's oftentimes more valuable than producing the 0.99 carat stone with the excellent cut grade. So they're going to go with the value driven aspect before beauty. So the skill set is targeted at profit, number one, even though beauty is what's sold in the end.
Now, can you talk about some of the ethical questions around mining natural diamonds, and probably like a general background, but also do you have personal opinions on that?
Me,
Sure.
I have a lot of them.
Well, I guess both of you. I mean, you can.
No,
you
I
can both
totally
answer
get
that.
Kennon.
Well, I'll start with lab diamonds, and then I'll go to you first for conflict diamonds, Jason.
All right.
I'll let you get the blunt of the spear. I read a study recently that looked believable, that said that the cost of everything's always measured in hectares of land, right? How much energy does something take is measured in hectares of land, right? Like a bison might take 2 hectares of land, where a potato takes 0.001 hectares of land. And that's referring to the amount of energy, as I understand it. But this study stated that lab grown takes 1/10 of the energy of a mine stone. And the type of lab grown, and this is just to my memory, the type of lab grown, if it's CVD or chemical vapor disposition, is substantially less energy costing than high pressure, high temperature, or HPHT. So ethically, as I understand it, or I would say my opinion, lab grown diamonds are better for the earth, or rather, statistically, they are better for the earth. I don't know if you've seen a picture of a mine, a diamond mine, but it is a massive hole in the earth. It is they take quite a chunk out.
Do we have one to pull up for people?
Sure.
It would have to be either you or Kennon that did it. If I do it, everything goes to hell in my screen.
I got you.
Yeah.
I already
feel
figured out how to get my screen back. So
Nice. I bet you're going to pull the one up that's north of Canada. Isn't that the one that?
the Ekatai.
Yeah.
So these
yeah.
are diamond
Wow.
mines.
Okay. Yeah.
So these are like, that might be a 6-story building right there.
Wow.
They are absolutely massive. These are large buildings here. So these pits are no joke. These dump trucks, like I'm 6 foot and I probably come up mid to the hub here.
Yeah. Those are huge.
Right? Like my head is where the axle is.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a disaster movie.
Yeah. And so
There
what
you go.
happens?
There's Canada.
Do they
Yeah.
fill them in afterwards, or that pit is
I
just?
don't think that that's really feasible to
No.
fill. Like, yeah.
Wow.
I think. Well, let's try this.
The giant Sardak pit.
Retired diamond mine, and I have no way of really knowing whether these are retired or not. So there's like city blocks, and
That's
there's
crazy.
Yeah. And so how do they know the diamonds are down there and that they find one location and then
I believe it's through LiDAR, which is I just learned the acronym. Laser. Yeah. Let me just look.
Is that the thing that archaeologists use to find tombs?
Exactly.
Where they go back and forth like a lawnmower?
Light. Oh, come on.
Yeah, I saw
light detection and ranging, or laser imaging detection and ranging. They'll basically shoot a laser at the ground from a little airplane, and they'll be able to tell topographically what's there. But diamonds come from the oldest parts of the Earth's crust, which are called cratons. So we know where those are, so they can go there first, take samples from the soil to judge what the material is. And that's how they find those mines originally.
Wow.
Wow. I had no idea that crater that's terrible. And I wonder what are the greater environmental implications to these giant craters just left there.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like an asteroid hit.
Yeah, geez. That's crazy.
I feel like for me that answered the ethics question. Like we should definitely be making them in a lab.
How would you say a person should go about finding someone? Obviously they should go to you, but if they're not around you or for some reason, or they can't go to you in some way, how could someone do it the correct way of finding a good jewelry designer that they know is going to treat them well and they know they're not going to get ripped off?
Credentials are certainly something. I mean, if I spent, I don't know, $150,000 on my education, and if I spent that much money on my education, one, I'm probably going to know what I'm talking about. Two, there's probably a much lower chance that I'm going to risk doing anything wrong in order to get a bad reputation and throw away that entire education.
Mm-hmm.
I would say credentials are a huge part of it.
And I can vouch for Kennon. We have had a lot of conversations, and I immediately could tell he's very ethical. He's like, if it were D&D, you're lawful good. You're just naturally a very fair person. I remember we would talk about things like that, and we would just be like, how could somebody have done that to someone? And that came up so much.
Yeah.
And that's why I got along with him so well also, is because I was so used to running into people and I'd be like, oh God, this person I feel like they're trying to screw me over. And
yeah,
not he's
Yeah, I mean, jewelry, gems and jewelry is a highly subjective thing. So the opportunities that immoral people have to abuse people in the industry is just massive. I mean, I have a little display that has four stones next to each other, all of the same size, all eye clean, and it's a white sapphire, cubic zirconia, natural diamond, and lab grown diamond. And one person in the last 2 years since I made that has said this one looks a little different than this one. So, but no one could tell me whether it was a cubic zirconia or a diamond, and imagine purchasing something out of country, that's not in the continental United States. You could purchase something on an island, for example, and that's you have no recourse of getting any money back. It could come back something completely different. So the potential for bad things to happen is certainly there in my industry.
So for people let's break it down, I guess, for you, like your average person shopping for a diamond, like what kind of credentials should they look for? Like how do they know if they're getting ripped off?
Well, if you're looking for a diamond, for example, the industry has worked very, very hard to remove a lot of the subjectivity, which I think is a great thing. We have to watch it because removing subjectivity could remove some of the romance with it too. But having a grading report with your stone, particularly one from one of the major laboratories such as GIA or GCal, that's very, very important. You can make sure that the quality is what it is, which, Jason, I don't know if you know this, but the GIA, as I heard it, is entirely automated at this point. There are no more gemologists there grading
stones. Do they use the little imprint on the diamond, or is it?
They do offer laser inscriptions, but color grading, clarity grading, cut grading, it's all automated, which just blows my mind. So definitely get a stone with a certification. Be aware that there are stones that have terrible certifications that are made to deceive, right? There are official looking pieces of paper that are completely different than what the stone actually is, that is made to deceive the end user. You can also get one for colored stones. Yeah, I would say who you choose to work with is hugely important. The major retailers, like if you're buying from a box store, they're really strict. Most of those stores are really strict in the materials they're selling. And by strict, if there's melee stones, a melee is a smaller stone, less than 0.4 carats. If there's a stone that's filled with melee, you're not going to have exact grades. It might say G to I color, SI1 to SI2, or unfortunately SI3 quality. So they'll give a range, and the quality of those stones is going to fall in that range somewhere. But even buying larger diamonds from box stores, they have such larger reputations to potentially ruin that they're not going to mess around. They know their margins, and they're gonna be pretty straight with it. So I would say that from the circumstances that I've seen more people burned from purchasing things overseas or outside of the continental US than any other circumstance. Maybe a handful of people that have gone to like an independent jeweler or an individual or a very touristy area and just gotten a stone that isn't quite right. But being in the US, those companies can have retribution. if you buy things, I've seen so many US soldiers ripped off from buying stones in Afghanistan. I've seen tons of people that got bad things in while traveling throughout the Caribbean, sometimes Europe, Asia, and there's no repercussion once you purchase that stone overseas. Like, you, watch your email bounce back once you say I'd like my money back. Like, there's nothing that you can do. So I would say purchase domestically, purchase from a company that either has an established reputation, or has credentials, or is something like an AGS store. AGS stores, or American Gem Society, is an organization that they qualify jewelry stores. So that's certainly something to look for. I probably would be AGS, but they don't accept what they call concierge jewelers, which is the trade term for what I am, a concierge jeweler. So,
yeah, if you could explain to me what does someone have to be looking for to go to you? Because I've often told people, oh, just call Vermont Gem Lab, and then they'll be like, oh, they said they don't do repairs, because you used to do repairs, but you don't anymore. So what can I send your way when someone asks me? Because people ask me all the time, do you still do this? Do you still do that?
Yeah, I mainly do custom engagement rings. That's 80% of my work, 90% of my work. It's what I really love doing. It's romantic, it's fun, it challenges me, it allows me to be an artist. And then the last 20%, I'll work with estates. Someone passes away and has an estate of jewelry, it needs to be distributed. I still do occasional work for the US government and Border Patrol, for things that are illegally smuggled. So the better part of appraisals I'm still doing. I'm not doing insurance appraisals anymore, and not doing repairs anymore. So yeah, mostly custom engagement rings. Occasional restoration. Those are fun.
I'm sure. Do you have a favorite story from a couple or something that's really
I was just memorable? The same thing.
I've got a lot of them, but the one that sticks out most to me will seem anticlimactic, but you could feel the emotion and love in the entire room. And it was a younger guy who came in. It was at my old location, and I had already made an engagement ring for her, and he had come in without her knowing, and we designed a necklace that matched, and I put it in one of these towers here, and they both met there so I could clean the ring, I think, something like that, and she saw it in the tower, and she's like, that looks just like my ring. And I took it out and let her try it on, and he's like, I made it for you. And she just teared up immediately. Awesome. And it was just like, you could cut the romance with a very soft butter knife. Like, it was just, you can't help but to not have all of the feelings in that moment. Mm-hmm. So it's those stories of making people happy, that I created something that there's only one like it in the world, and it was made just for you by the person that you love. Like, that's what I love the most about what I do. So hence why I stopped doing repairs and concentrated on that.
Yeah. And that's what you're saying, is that's the feeling I get from Kennon. Because when I started in the jewelry business, I didn't know anything, and I know maybe a little now. But I remember, actually, when I first started, I didn't even care about jewelry. I thought of it as like almost like superficial, like, oh, jewelry, whatever. But I just wasn't my thing, until one day this woman came in, and she had a broken ring. She said she crushed it by accident because a filing cabinet hit her hand, and crushed her ring. And I'm not going to name stores, but some place in the mall said that it would cost what was it, $1,600 to fix or something crazy like that. And I remember Neil, who was our jeweler for a really long time. I brought it to him, and I came back and I told her, and this is her engagement ring, and she didn't have the money to fix it. And I said, it's going to cost $60. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. And she said, really? And she just started bawling. And this is like maybe within a month of us opening the store. And I got it at that point. The jewelry, if it's really special to a person, it is like, it's all sentimental. I mean, there's a reason why it's made out of metals and stones that last forever. Or a really long time anyway. It's super important to them. And the joy she got to be able to get that fixed for $60 was just, I was like, oh, this is why I'm doing it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It really, you really feel it sometimes.
One of the best things that a mentor of mine once told me is, we were having a conversation just like this. And he said, Kennon, you don't sell jewelry, you sell romance. And that has stuck with me forever. And that is the pillar at which I start every conversation of creating custom engagement rings. It's always, tell me about her. What does she do? What are her hobbies? Excuse me, he, she, or they. Tell me about your significant other, and what does that person do? And a lot of people stop and they say, why hasn't every salesperson or every person that I've gone to so far asked me that? And I don't want to answer that question, but it's we're approaching it from different angles.
Isn't that, I guess, the impetus behind that famous slogan, the K, every kiss begins with K, right? Like the advertising, right? You're selling romance.
Yeah.
I remembered that slogan.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, they did a good job marketing it. Yeah. Yeah. Every kiss does not start with K. Oh my God. Well, I won't get into that much. Wow. Yeah. That's God, there's so much about him that I love to talk about, and not just jewelry. Because is there any other jewelry things that you think? Because I have some other stuff about you that I'd like to at least touch on, and we can always go backwards.
Yeah. The one thing that for some reason popped in my head yesterday when I was thinking about us talking was, for some reason, if you're going to take a diamond, right, our entire diamond industry, and this is more of just a bizarrity or a rare thing that blew my mind when I started learning about it, that every diamond is designed right now on the market for the showroom, not to be worn, right? No diamonds are cut or designed to be worn. They're only designed to be sold in the showroom. And that's, so if you think about it, back to our conversation about refractive indices, if you picture, when I see a diamond ring that comes in that's even a week old, but 2-3 years old, it's covered in lotions, oils, all sorts of things that accumulate on it through general life that change the refractive index of a diamond. What I would like to see, and of course that's going to change how light bends through it and alter the cut grade of that stone. It's not going to perform the same way. So what I would love to see, I don't have enough traffic, and nor do I have the equipment or time, but I would love to see an experiment in my industry of someone taking 1,000 rings that come through, scraping the whatever it is off of it, analyzing that, figuring out what the refractive index is in average of all of that stuff, schmezma, life, whatever it is, and then cutting a diamond appropriately that it performs the best when it's being loved and worn throughout its life.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Also, lights. You'll
Absolutely.
never have your diamond look better than in a jewelry store.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have 5800 Kelvin is how they're graded. And all of my lights are 5800 Kelvin so that I can grade them appropriately. But I have lights in the back. I wish I had a remote because the entire back will light up. And those are like diamond showcase lights that they're in the back for a reason. But yeah, you can, especially with LEDs these days, you can really light up showcases like nothing else.
Yeah, we used to have regular lights, mostly because we couldn't afford the diamond lights. But we had regular lights, and then we had this one light that was a really expensive light that we used for jewelry, and they could choose to put their hand under it so that you could see what it looks like in a jewelry store. And because, well, it was cost, but they really appreciated the fact that they could look at it in regular light because it doesn't look the same.
I think that's genius. I think that's a trust building exercise.
Yeah.
That you're trying to be genuine about the differentiation in its apparent beauty under different circumstances.
Oh yeah.
I think that's great. I would like to make or buy some of those boxes.
Yeah.
Immediately think of Dune when you said that.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, are there any other jewelry things you'd like to touch on? I mean, we can always go back, just let it flow.
Yeah, we can always, I want to learn a bit about you also. It's a really fascinating career, but let's dive into some of the things that kind of make you and maybe that intersect with that career too.
Yeah. As you know, my son's autistic, and you worked with the Howard Center, is that correct?
Yeah, I've mentored young autistic adults for 10 years, 12 years, somewhere in there. I've only had 2 apprentices over that time span. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still do that, or are you too busy now?
I do.
Oh,
yeah,
you do?
my
Wow.
my apprentice right now, I'm so damn proud of the guy. I'm allowed to swear on this show, right?
Yes.
He's actually lead at a metal manufacturing company. So he's actually a middle management person right now. And when I met him, that was, 8 or 9 years ago, and he didn't have the ability. His form of autism, he has a lot of trouble with location, right? So if I were to say, could you go grab us a couple BLTs at the sandwich shop we were at yesterday, I'd have to walk there with him and show him and walk back. And it would be maybe 6 or 7 times of doing that. And then he'd be like, okay, I remember that sign and it's past that sign. And then I take a left here and it's right. Got it. Right. And so he was struggling. He was really having a rough time. And 8 years later, through, I think a lot of it is confidence, confidence we could touch base on confidence and mindset and how important that is. But confidence is a large part of it. And simply being told that you can do this and you're worth it and you can overcome the things that are troubling you, that you're having difficulty with, I think was the key to that. And he's doing amazingly well right now. He's actually setting up his own custom jewelry studio right now in his house.
Oh, wow.
And has been building that. So that's just really beautiful for me to see. Super proud of the guy. My first apprentice, he couldn't remember or comprehend time, right? So this one's a little tricky to grasp, but if I were to say, I'll be home in an hour, to him, that's the equivalent of, it could be 5 minutes from now, it could be 2 months from now, it could be 2 years from now.
Wow.
No comprehension of time and the distance of time, right? So imagine trying to do business and say, yes, I'll have this ready for you in 2 weeks, but you can't comprehend what 2 weeks is. You don't know if that's 2 days from now or 2 months from now. It's like, I don't know how to help someone solve that particular obstacle, because that's a really, really tricky one.
Sounds like it would have to be done with like an iPhone or something that's ticking down.
Yeah.
Reminders,
I mean, with like
or something.
With space and location, there are markers, right? You can say, oh, I remember the red sign and that statue. So you can remember the markers and you can put these things together. But time is an ever-changing thing. And it's constant to everyone else, but the most fluid and dynamic and amorphous and difficult thing for that individual person. It's there are no markers.
Yeah.
You know, you can look at a screen and say, okay, well, it's these 2 boxes over. Maybe that would be a marker. Maybe that would be good enough. I'm not entirely sure. He's doing pretty well these days, though.
Seems like there should be an app for that. I mean, like, you know, you could set up, if somebody said 2 weeks, you put in a new thing, seeing Kennon in 2 weeks, and then you set it, and then it has like a big disc, and the colors slowly go away as time goes on.
And each day you could spend 20 minutes looking at your calendar and saying, if you do it with colors and like an hourglass or a thing that's slowly running, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So Kennon,
new app idea tonight from Jason.
What made you decide to get involved with this program, and do you think that there's maybe something about the jewelry industry that lends itself to neurodiverse people being successful in there, or being able to, you know, kind of find a path?
I was originally asked through a family friend, Gary Olivetti. Love that guy. And he came to me and said, hey, could you spare any time in doing this? And I throughout my 20 years of being in this industry, I've never really had many people that helped me along the way. I've had like my mom has certainly, you know, done a huge part in my life, and I couldn't have done it without her.
I love his mom.
I've had some great friends like Jason, but I never had a mentor. You know, I never had someone that said, I did have some people that could help me through like the American Society of Appraisers, and that was one of the best blessings I've ever had. But knowing that, it was an easy yes. Like, yeah, absolutely, I would be happy to give some time and help someone out. And you know, over time, those grew into friendships and things like that, where I genuinely care about them. To answer your other question, yeah, I think that the jewelry industry, it's a very visual thing, and it's a very if you have trouble with location or time or numbers or things like that, you know, you can be a phenomenal jeweler. You know, it's a very visual thing. You're using, what would that be, the left side of the brain, rather than working with numbers or highly technical, you know, coding or something like that. It's definitely better for some people.
Do you think you're on the spectrum?
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I'm on the spectrum. I was never well organized when I was a kid. And there's a forum that jewelers submit their jeweler benches. I'm convinced I have the cleanest jeweler's bench on the face of the planet
I believe
because
it.
they're all just mess, 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 mess.
Oh,
And I can't do it. I can't do it. I know where every single one of my tools are at every given time. And I think that I learned that as a compensation for the messiness that I had. It was me compensating for a deficiency, and when you do that enough, you become an expert in it. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I'm on the spectrum somewhere, and I don't even like using the term spectrum
mhm.
because it can't be linear. It's not 2D.
No,
It's got to be 3D.
you're right.
There's not just like two aspects.
It's more of a sphere.
It's way more fluid and way more dynamic than that.
Mm-hmm.
But
as is everything.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, you're hearing the term like neurodiverse a lot more, and I use that term because I think that makes a lot of sense because there are all different types of neurodiversity. I mean, even like ADHD, anxiety, like all of those things can be considered neurodiverse, and that they are just different and depending on the individual and kind of your own makeup.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, being a father to an autistic child, I never thought about it until spending this much time with him. I'm like, oh, I'm totally on the spectrum. There's no doubt about it. I don't know where. Like you said, it isn't linear at all. It's totally it's like points coming from all directions at different levels.
Dandelion head.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it totally is like that. Yeah.
And if you are not on the spectrum, like you're probably the most bland personality. Like just everything is black and white,
Yeah.
and just you're walking around in a old black and white movie constantly. Like
MAGA supporters. Oh, wait. Oh God. And also Kennon's pretty political. I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but he's got a lot of a lot to say.
I'm political in the closet, so to speak.
You're in the closet.
And I found I'll touch base on it, but I'm not going to get into my personal beliefs and opinions. We are extremely tribalized at this point. And with tribalization comes a large amount of fundamentalists. And I think that fundamentalists are extremely dangerous. And I believe that tribalization has led us there. And I think that the root cause of most of the difficulties that we're having getting along these days is due to the tribalization of our society. So.
And also, I would say the just huge wealth disparities too, because people.
I think that we should be talking about that 10-1 over a lot of the other things that are at the forefront of our conversations, because wealth disparities don't see anything else but that, and that is the only objective. Doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in, where you came from. None of that, nothing else matters if it's about money. And it affects, what's the statistic now? 99% of us now, 99.8% of us now, and growing. So,
yeah. And after the recession, or I'm sorry, after they admit that the recession's happened, it'll just be a giant sell-off again, because the rich people they call it keeping their powder dry. They have money to wait for things to drop, and then people that don't have a lot of money lose their stuff, like their houses and And then the rich people swoop in and buy it at a very reduced rate. And then when we come out of the recession and everything goes up, they're richer and everyone else is poorer. And it just keeps on going.
How much richer can the elites get though? Like,
I don't.
I mean, we're at a point where there's so little diversity in between the uber wealthy and the rest of the people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 99-1.
Yeah.
What more?
And
what more could we?
Corruption is not a partisan thing.
Yeah.
Because Nancy Pelosi,
it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't. I mean, if you look at Nancy Pelosi's, I'm into stocks quite a bit, and she's part of a committee, and then she'll learn something, and then her husband's company that does all their stocks will sell or buy, and then for some reason, legislation will come out that makes their stock go up or down, and then that is insider trading. And then all she has to do is go, no, I don't. And that's it. Because everybody thinks they can't do anything about it. So they just let it slide.
I do try and walk around on a regular basis, if I can, in a mindful way of understanding that each and every one of us is living better than the kings and queens did.
It's true.
200-300 years ago.
Yep.
I mean, I could grab a magical little box and say chicken and goat, and 30 minutes later it's at my door. I mean, that's pretty incredible. A large majority of people have a house that they can stay in, although that's now becoming more difficult. That's
now. Yeah.
The stock, markets are buying up housing now, which is just really, really disturbing. But getting back to it, we are living extremely good lives compared to the history of humanity. And if we can operate under that, then we can understand how lucky we are and how grateful and happy we are. But that does not say that we should accept any of the things that are any of the corruption, any of the disparities, anything like that. So I don't believe that we should say, here's the corruption, here are all of the bad things. Let's all walk around angry and just be pissed off all the time, because that will not solve anything. The change does need to come from people and social changes, I believe, first. And if we can establish that, then I think our society can grow healthier from the inside out.
I mean, I think you have to harness the anger in a way towards change, and
absolutely
follow a lot of these, like the labor strikes and like all of these actions that people are taking together to hit the elites in their wallets. I mean, really, you have to, and it's.
Or your homes now is the next big fight.
I mean, it's going to be a huge effort that you need masses. You need everybody to kind of come together and say, like, we're not going to accept this anymore. We are. Yep. I mean, look at in other countries, you've got people filling the streets and
oh yeah,
it's like
the French have always been known for that.
Yeah, and we just don't do that here. We get to we attack each other more
because we're tribalized.
Yep.
Because we're so black and white with, if I were to say one thing that I believe in that one side doesn't agree with, then I can be canceled or I can be exposed, but there's no room for learning. We have to allow room for people to learn. If we can't allow room for people to learn, then we're always going to have that negativity. It's like, how do you create a racist? Do you think anyone is born racist? They learn that hate from someone. They learn it from someone. So in order to let that person, in order to remove the racism from that person, you can't expose that person to more hate, because that's how they got it in the first place. That's the issue, is the hate. So you can only do that with love and understanding and allowing that person to learn through the process. So we're doing it wrong if we think that canceling someone is going to do anything functional at all. It's going to create more hate. And because it's a hateful function, it's a hateful action.
Yeah. And if you treat people that you disagree with in a negative way, they're just going to dig their heels in and not be interested in learning anything from you.
It'll make them feel correct.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, that person was really mean. That person was really hateful. So I'm going to feel correct. And now I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because I feel better with my negativity or my bad actions, because the other people are the ones that are being hurtful or exposing me to more hate. It's a vicious cycle.
And you have to be willing to accept that you might be able to learn something from them too. Because if you don't, then why should they trust you if you're just the Mr. Know-it-all?
You should walk into every conversation thinking that you can learn something from that person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
I think that's a very healthy way of going into a conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're talking about racism and so forth, the onus is on people that look like the people of privilege to talk to those others that are having that hate issue, because we're the ones that can, right? Like, you can't expect somebody that's on the receiving end of that to kind of to fix it. So you've got to and usually if you've got a family member or a friend, or somebody that's just spewing that in front of you, it's the onus is on the people that are in that privileged group to say, hey, let's dig into that a little bit more. Let's have a conversation, rather than, like, as you're saying, like, oh, well, I'm just not going to talk to them. And we had a great guest who's a young activist, Melly, and a musician, who said, she said, well, I can't talk to your racist uncle, right? Like, he's not going to listen to me. And she said,
well, you might not be able to talk to that person about racism, because that might not be something that's accessible to them. You might say instead, like, how are you feeling these days? What's going on in your life? And if that person is saying, oh, I just got fired, my wife left me, all these negative things, maybe that's the core of where that hate is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily something, we can't assume that approaching someone that's saying these awful things, we can't assume that saying those are awful things, you can't say those, is really going to solve the equation. We need to know where that came from. It could have been an abusive parent. It could have been, a plethora of reasons that something bad happened to that person, and that negativity was learned somewhere. And that's the core of why that person is most likely behaving in that fashion, releasing that anger out of them, rather than trying to address it. So I agree with you. There's some responsibility in family members and people to address these issues, but I don't think that it's necessarily, it's probably not the public that needs to do that, which is a very new thing. I mean, that's just straight Hillary as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, but I think at the same time, you do have to have boundaries and things, right? Like, I will say to people, right, knowing that I'm not going to change somebody's belief, but at the same time, I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to listen. Please don't say that.
Of course.
I'm not going to listen.
Your boundaries. Your boundaries are yours, and entirely yours.
Deeply hurtful to somebody else, right? And say like that. I'm not going to. And I think you can kind of tackle it that way. Sometimes that you're not going to change their opinion or beliefs, but you're saying, hey, I'm not going to listen to that. This is not. This doesn't align with my beliefs. This is hurtful to other people, and and I think in public spaces you can have those boundaries to make sure that you're protecting others that are marginalized, and you don't just want that to fly.
And as everything is so dynamic, as we were talking, we also should not be walking around acting as victims if we're not. that is equally as abusive, and as it creates problems rather than solve solutions. So,
like, what's an example of that?
If I were to say that, that's a good question, and I'm trying to figure out a good example of that without jumping right into it. If I were to say that people should come to me as a jeweler because I didn't inherit a jewelry store, or I wasn't given that shop, so why are you going to them? I'm the one that's in need. That doesn't really make much sense, because all I'm doing is saying I'm a victim, even though I have opportunity and I have the ability to make a good life for myself. It shouldn't be a selling point, right? It shouldn't be a selling point of my product or what I'm trying to do, even though that's the truth, and that's the how I've something that I've had to deal with through my life.
Right. So. Or like claiming Black History Month. When's White History Month?
Absolutely.
Like that. I was like, yeah. What?
Yeah. It's straw man arguments, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Huh. Interesting. I can see Rena's wheels turning.
Yeah, well, I pulled up some stats also, because one of the journalists that I really respect and follow, Chris Hedges. I pulled up some stats for in case we're wondering about the wealth disparities and where they stand, like from 1928 versus now.
Yeah.
And he happened to have some in one of the last pieces. So in 1928, the top 1% held about 24% of the nation's income. And then that steadily declined until about 1973. And then by the early 70s, the oligarchy, started again, this assault on
Shot
workers.
Up in the 80s, as I understand it.
And and so because you had these mass movements in the 60s, right? And so the billionaire class corporations, they come together to take things back. And so today, the top 10% of the richest people in the US own almost 70% of the country's total wealth.
Wow. And so it's almost 3 times worse than it was in the 20s. And
yeah. And the top 1% control 32% of the wealth. The bottom 50% of the US population hold 3% of US wealth.
Yeah. I just saw a documentary on this, actually, and a lot of the blame goes to Reagan with the tax cuts to the rich, because they used to be at like 70% taxes, and in the 50s they were 90% taxed, the rich, and now it's down to something ridiculously low, and sometimes zero. It's like 20% and sometimes lower, like to zero.
Yeah, and because all the loopholes and everything.
Yeah. And so the thing, like, trickle down economics was, we'll make the rich people not have to pay as many taxes, and then what they'll do is they'll take that extra money and they'll invest it into the country, like supplying jobs and innovation and stuff. And they didn't; they just hoarded it. So,
and it sat in a bank account, accruing interest, and
waiting for the powder, with their powder dry, waiting to buy up things once everything crashes again and again and again. And those cycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Let's talk about something fun, like travel. Because Kennon travels more than anyone I've ever known in my life, at least as far as your Instagram and Facebook tell me, anyway.
Well, until I had my my little girl.
Ah, yes, that's right. Your dad. How?
Although I am going to Galapagos next week.
Oh,
nice.
How old is your daughter?
She's 2.5.
Oh, nice.
Love of my life.
Yep, she told him that he had to pick up poo the other day. Or yes, it wasn't. When was it?
But it wasn't. It was how she said it, right? And she just comes over to me and she says, "Daddy, I pooped." and you're going to clean it up.
Poking like a 2-year-old.
Like, I'm not mad. Like, that was the most adorable thing ever, even though I have to clean human fecal matter now. You know, so I'm still in love.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's funny that she's like very aware, like, because I feel like a lot of like kids that they don't really put thought into who's cleaning it up. It's just like, you know, I pooped and someone will come along. But she's
and it was the like, no, I want to torture my dad. Like, and yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Galapagos, huh? Nice. What are you going to do there?
Ride turtles. I'm kidding. That's definitely not allowed. I would never ride a turtle. I would never ride one.
You're not allowed to swim with the tortoises and grab onto their shell? I've seen it.
You know, I don't really know, because I only found out that I was going 2 weeks ago, and I've been so busy. I haven't really been able to. It's with a National Geographic ship that goes from island to island. And we were on a list, and we just happened to get it at the last moment. So,
that sounds so fun.
I'm going in a little blind to it.
Huh.
I think I've always wanted to go. So, and I think they're like, it's not a situation where you can like swim, because they're very protected islands. Yeah. So I think it's really mostly observing.
And I think they're going to restrict them even more in the coming years.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you travel, do you ever get people approach you with crappy jewelry and like, want to buy this? And
yeah, I mean, I've certainly had that. But when people know what I do, it's like, oh, look at my ring in a dimly lit restaurant and tell me what it's worth. It's like,
what about
there's a car in a field over there. What kind of engine does it have in it?
What about like people when I went to St. Thomas, we had people coming up to us all the time, like, here, buy this, this is real sapphires. You know, like, do you ever like use your superpowers on them or anything?
No,
you just say no, thank you.
Yeah, no thanks.
Oh, how Dumbledore of you. That's great. Oh yeah, I would I would go into a long spiel about their ring. Could you tell me about and I would just rattle off. They'd leave you alone though. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly make an effort to go to jewelry districts wherever I go and see as much as I can.
Oh yeah,
certainly fun.
Now you travel a lot for education too, right? Like you went to Japan.
A little bit, not a ton. The last business trip that I took was probably JCK Las Vegas. Before that, it was the GIA International Gemological Conference, which I presented some of my work at. So not so much education anymore. I gotta say, YouTube University is wonderful these days. We did not have that 20 years ago when I started, and I work by myself here, so I can just sit and learn all day and sit and be a little sponge.
Yeah.
So that has been a real positive change, I think, for really our society.
Oh yeah, in many ways. What do you think about AI? Do you think it'll be able to make CAD jewelry? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to replace the romance factor, but I do think that there will be programs online that people can pay a one-time fee and design their own engagement ring, and it'll be shipped to them in the mail, like without a doubt. I mean,
you just described how I got out of the video business, because that's exactly what happened. I had a video store, and then Netflix existed, and if you remember, they used to mail you the DVD.
Yeah.
And I remember just going, when I want a Netflix account, I got to get out of the video business, because I mean, but see, it's different with jewelry, because you said the romance factor. I mean,
yeah, people are already buying engagement rings, at places that sell food, so
Yeah.
they're already comfortable without the romance factor, or at least a substantial portion of our society is. So there's something for everyone, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, AI is incredible. I'm using it. I'm using Midjourney, ChatGPT, a few other companies, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, I did a blog post today that was 600 words and had 10 custom photographs in it
Mm-hmm.
that would have taken me probably 4 days beforehand.
Do you put it through an AI detector?
I do not. That's a really good idea.
You should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Google has an AI detector, and the funny thing about that is, so you should know this. If you're a really good writer, like Rena,
no, it's not good writing. Jason.
No, if you're a really good writer, like if you
no.
Okay. Okay, what do you mean?
The AI, right? It's still like, it's very formulaic.
Yeah.
So if you're writing like that SEO style, like if you're writing that formulaic SEO type writing,
I see what you're saying.
Then I mean, it might get flagged as like sort of AI, but it's not going to flag like really human writing is not going to get like
more information stuff.
That's next spring when that gets detectable or non-detectable. I mean, it's going to be a game of cat and mouse. AI is going to get smarter. Then we're going to learn ways to detect it. But eventually it's going to get so smart that there is no way that we're going to be able to detect it. So it's, I probably should put those posts through a detector, but how long is that going to be the reality?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it is definitely going the way of, I mean, look at our video games in the 80s. We had Pong. Two things like this and a ball that went through it. Now we have virtual reality games. Like, I don't know if you've played Beat Saber, but it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a good way to stay in shape too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you play a lot of video games? Sorry, you said it. You said video games.
I'd like to play more.
Yeah, I know.
But I just have no time for it. I have
Can we schedule some
choose
time?
My daughter and business and my wife. And
can we schedule some time though?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. I'm gonna.
I've got a HTC Vive Cosmos. If you want to try those on.
What is that?
VR goggles.
Oh, okay. You didn't. Oh, you went that route. Okay. Is it good?
It's incredible.
You can design jewelry in that.
I probably can. My CAD program is probably too old to augment correctly, or in other words, it would just look like a 2D screen in a 3D environment.
Oh, you should totally. I can see you now. Picture you in a room with your ring like this big in the middle.
Godly power.
Yeah, you're just spinning
diamonds.
Yes. Oh, it'd be so great. And then you'd have to stream that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That would be fun.
If you need to set that up and you buy all the equipment, I'll come help you.
So we're getting to like the end of the 2 hours. Do we want to do our well, first I guess let's where can people find you? Can people do you have to be in Vermont to work with you?
No, I've done rings for folks all over the country, Australia, Great Britain, one to Iceland one time.
Oh, nice. So how can people find you? And I'm sure Jason will put it in the
VermontGemLab.com.
Is it Vermont
is
or
my
BT?
URL?
Or are they both?
Vermont spelled out.
Okay.
And GemLab singular.
Cool. Yeah, I have it in the description, but when I edit this, I'll put it on the screen as well. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. One last question. It's something I ask everyone. It's hypothetical and it's a little nerdy, which I think you'll enjoy. So picture yourself easily enough where you are right now. And through the door, someone comes in and they look exactly like you and they're dressed just like you, except they look very disheveled, maybe a rip in their shirt, a little smudge on their face. And he runs up to you and he says, "Come with me right now. I'm from the future." What do you do?
I would look for belly buttons and a scar.
Okay.
For example, I have a little scar on my finger here. I would say, show me that scar.
Oh,
It's there.
I want to see a belly button. Are you made in a test tube or are you actually a person?
Or a
all
robot, I guess.
Show me your teeth. Show me, like, there's ways that you could immediately determine whether that's actually you or not.
You're like the first person, I think, that, right, Jason, that
Yeah,
said,
he
like,
debunked-
no,
Did I get an A?
Oh, yeah.
Did I ace it?
I'm going to verify that that's
all
me.
kinds of well, actually, one of my best friends, without missing a beat, said, "I would ask him for the password."
That's
I
good
think
too.
we had somebody that said that too, that there was a
Yeah.
password. Yeah.
But see, that could be digitally found out. You know, there's ways of doing that.
Mhm.
You could also plant scars on people, but
Yeah.
I don't know that they could be really necessarily exactly the same.
So you find out that he's really you, or has passed all your tests. What do you do?
My curiosity would get the best of me. Although I would always think of my wife and my daughter first.
Mm. Well, so would he.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would say you're really asking a paradoxical question.
Oh, yes.
You know.
Yeah, the universe would explode immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. I knew this was going to be a really fun interview.
I feel like the people's answers, almost like, if we really pay attention, it speaks to either like the type of person they are or like what they do.
Mhm.
Because I feel like the nature of the work that you do, of examining things
Mm.
very carefully and meticulously. I thought that was a really interesting answer, that you're like, well, I would see how
my
I could.
mindset is already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
appraising the
Good
person,
observation. Yeah.
authenticating them.
Yeah.
Yeah, authenticate. Yeah, you had to authenticate, like, is this really me? So I thought that was interesting because it aligns well with what you do.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Great. All right. Well, so I'll put that in the description, and yeah, I mean, I could go on forever, but we're out of time. So
And
We'll do it again sometime.
oh yeah. Well, now we can talk because now I don't have to worry
Yeah,
about the interview.
totally. The silence has been broken.
That's right.
I mean, I would go on, but I have been in 5 hours of Zoom meetings
Oh,
today,
okay.
and so I have
Wow.
like definite Zoom fatigue and need to like retire from the camera. But this was the most fun one because the others obviously were work meetings. So it was really great to learn more about you and to learn about gems in the jewelry industry. And for people that are watching, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these thought-provoking interviews with fascinating guests. And we're also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok with some behind-the-scenes videos. And please consider becoming a Patreon member because this is like our passion project. So we don't have any money. So so which means equipment comes out of, pockets and so forth. So if you want to support us, greatly appreciated.
I'd love to do this full time. That would be fantastic.
Yes.
Just only thing I work on in the day is editing a video or setting up something or interviewing. That would be so fun.
Yeah,
I just have to say this one thing. I have amazing friends, don't I, Rena? Everybody I've brought on, I've realized even more how much they're awesome. Like,
you do have a collection of like just really interesting people. I will say that, like, in something about Vermont, it's
Yeah.
Well, it's important that we have meetings like this, or that we open up the conversation, that we can all learn from each other and we can all discover new things as we go along. So thank you for this opportunity and for that tonight.